Welcome back to another episode of the Boro4Boro podcast, where we take a bite out of the Big Apple real estate scene. We're here from the 2026 Inman Conference. I'm Matt Winter.
Tracy Byers.
And we are joined by an extra special guest. Now, in the mortgage game, there's few rock stars, but there are names that everyone knows. And it is Brian Scott Cohen from Guaranteed Rate. Thank you for joining us, my brother.
Yes,
thanks for having me, guys. I'm honored to be part of this.
It's an honor to have you. So for those of you at home who don't know the name, I'm going to throw out some numbers. Over 20 years in the industry, yeah? Over $6 billion in transactions, yeah?
Yep.
Might be 7?
It's closer to 7.
All right, give us, by the end of this pod, it'll be 7.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But all that to say, he is obviously a pro in the mortgage game. He has seen it all over the last 20 years. And now that today is February 2026, which is crazy, we want to have a conversation with you about the mortgage playbook for a buyer who's on the fence, who's thinking about it, who's ready to jump in, but they're seeing the rates do what they're doing, and they want to know, how should we approach the market?
Yeah.
So I'll start with that question. You know, what do you tell somebody in 2026 as of today? Rates are what, like 6?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a good thing for them?
I like them. I like them at 6. I'll take it. The spread actually between savings accounts and mortgage rates is actually really good right now. You can still get 4 or 5% on high yield savings account and money markets, and interest rates being at a 6, it's a very small spread. I like where rates are right now. Not everybody does, of course. Everyone always thinks about, hey, you remember when they were 1% and 2%? Yeah, I remember, but I also
seems
remember
so far away from now.
Yes,
right?
those are gone. But people like to remember what was. But we were a year ago at 7%, so we're down a full point from where we were 12 months ago, which is a really great place to be. I do think we go down a little bit further, guys, which will also help. But I think right now is the time. But I always think every time is the time, right? Because you guys as expert agents, when you guys talk to buyers and show them properties, how many of them find their property on the first showing? Is it 1? Is it 0? How many places do they have to see before they find the one?
Yeah, I mean, a couple, but definitely you get lucky sometimes. You get that client that sees 4 properties and you're like, we're done. But I would definitely say, like, this January compared to last January, it's super busy. Like, would you feel the same way? I mean, you guys usually see it first.
We're busy. I'm not going to say super busy because the market in New York City is still 65-ish% cash.
Yeah.
Love my job sometimes. So, like, my biggest competition, people are always like, oh, who's your biggest competition? Is it this bank or that bank? I'm like, it's cash.
Yeah.
Cash.
That's my biggest competition.
And look, we've seen the headlines where everyone is fleeing out of New York, but then they're not talking about the headlines that New York is back in a different kind of way where, like you said, cash is king right now.
Cash is king.
But for the person who, let's say, less affluent, who, even if they're looking at multi-million-dollar properties, they're financing them. Have you noticed that there's a mindset change versus where we were at this time last year when rates were 7?
Yeah. I think that buyers know that, hey, after a while of renting, because rent in New York City, you guys tell me, the rental market, from what I understand,
skyrocketed last year,
right?
Yeah.
So we do a lot of rent versus buy scenarios for clients and say, hey, look, you're throwing away. I just did real story. I just did someone who was renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Williamsburg. They're paying $8,500 a month in rent. You can borrow $1.5 to $2 million and have a payment that's same or less than you have for rent.
Yep.
And we're seeing that a lot. So when I talk to buyers, they know, like, hey, I need to get into the buying game. And I think it's experts like you that can show them, hey, look, we know what you're paying. Look what you can get for this. And there's a lot of people that don't understand that. One, how much it costs to borrow money. They just hear, oh, rates are 6 or rates are 7, and they're like, that's so high.
Yeah, that's all they focus on.
Is it? Do you know what your payment is?
Right.
Like, we sell payments. Like, I tell people all the time when I talk to people, I'll give you a payment, and sometimes people hang up the phone. They're like, click. They're like, that's great. Our payment's only going to be this. Then 10 minutes later, they call back like, what's the rate on that? I'm like, don't worry. Go with the payment. Like, don't worry about it. Because we have so many different loan programs. We have over 150 different mortgage products where I can give you a payment that's equivalent to what you would pay on a 5% rate, but the rate's even 6.5%, right? It's based on, we can go 40-year mortgage. We can go interest-only mortgages. There's so many different options out there for buyers. I think that if there's any takeaway I have for them is pick up the phone and call a mortgage person, call a real estate agent. It's free. It's free to talk to me.
Get informed.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, establish the relationship early on.
Yeah.
You can speak to me first, but then my next route is to speak to the mortgage broker, because he's going to get you the products, he's going to get you the rates, he's going to guide you to know how much you can afford and where your monthly payments will be estimated.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago that we were telling all over social media, the hot thing was what? Date the rate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Date the rate, marry the house.
Marry the house,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
True.
But that mindset, it sounds kitschy and it sounds cheesy, but it's the truth, because to your point, a lot of what we tell our clients is don't get attached to the house. Really what you're buying is your rate. You're buying how much you can afford on a monthly basis, and does it feel like something that you can actually manage? Because at the end of the day, the house is the physical representation of it. But if you can't afford it, it doesn't matter that house looks like.
Yeah. And honestly, too, like 2-3 years ago, at least 2 years ago, the rates were almost 8. So have you been seeing, since the rates are 6 now, people refinancing as often as...
We're starting to see it, which I love. It used to be 50% of my business. And now it's like, last year it was like 0% of my business. I'd say we're probably like 15% right now. So from 0 to 15, it's like, wow, refis are up. But I think as the farther we go in the year, we have a new Fed chairman coming in. We do expect rates to continue to trickle down. But we are taking people who bought in the last 24 months and starting to go out there and go over refinance options with them. New York's a little bit harder of a market because closing costs are a little bit higher than they are in New Jersey or Florida or California, where to recoup your money for refinance, it takes a little bit longer in New York. But in New York on co-op closing costs are relatively low, where you still have to go through the board to get a refinance. A lot of people don't know that, but your board actually has to approve a refinance. They typically charge a fee, so that's how they make their money. But on refinancing on a co-op is relatively inexpensive. Those people right now should be refinancing because they got rates in the 7s and 8s. And we're getting them in the 6s, and adjustable rates, guys, are in the 5s right now. So big difference.
No, I love that you brought up co-ops, because obviously the majority of the housing stock, for those of you at home who don't know, in New York City, it's probably going to be a co-op. And co-ops get a bad name for one reason or another. But for you who's financing in these co-ops, is there something outside of just maybe the rate, but what are the things that you're typically advising a client on when you know that they're navigating a co-op transaction?
I love co-ops, for multiple reasons. One, I think for an investment standpoint, you go through an actual interview process, right? And a lot of them, and they're looking at your finances, where you're going to a building where your neighbors have gone through this. You don't have to worry about your neighbor not qualifying or buying in a shell company or something like that. They're real people and have gone through the process, which usually we see a lot of co-ops that are really strong financially, very heavily owner occupied. So we're seeing that your neighbors are there and people are building long relationships, and not everybody is renting it out. Not everyone rents on a condo. It's also, people forget and they think, I'm just buying shares. But those shares, and you get a mortgage on those shares, there's tax advantages, right?
Yes.
You can still deduct interest up to the first $750,000 of a mortgage on a co-op as well. So I like co-ops as stable investments. I like them as forced savings plan, because you're building equity every month as you pay down your loan. And I like them as a tax advantage. I think they're absolutely great. So for people out there, you tell me, guys, as agents, do you typically see that buyers are getting more for their money on a co-op or condo? Like, does you get more space? Like, what do you see in that market?
So at least in Manhattan, you're getting, for obviously condos and co-ops are different price points, but you're getting so much more sometimes for co-op, because you have the community aspect of it. You don't really go by the price per square foot. That also helps. But I've been seeing a lot of clients looking more at co-ops than condos.
Conversely, though, in a lot of the markets that I cover, for example, Queens, we're starting to see a lot more condo inventory come up. And Queens, not that long ago, was the wild, wild east. People were like, I don't know anything about Queens, but places like Long Island City, where I live and I do a lot of my business, it's kind of that entry point where people are like, all right, I can buy a condo, comes with all the fancy amenities that you'll see in Brooklyn or Manhattan. But for them, outside of just the price per square foot, what you're actually getting for it it's starting to reimagine for them what that money is going towards. So to answer your question, I do think, at least in Queens and some of these markets, you're starting to see people be more willing to spend the money, because for them, they're getting more for a little bit less than what it would cost them if they were throwing money away on renting.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I feel like that home buyers right now we're seeing all want to get some kind of deal or some kind of value. Like I'm always seeing that buyers that are out there, they want to make sure that they're getting some kind of value out there, and be it in, people love new construction, right? It's brand new. They'll be the first one to live in it. There's shiny appliances. Yeah. And I think on co-ops, you get to really see some kind of value add, because we are seeing different price points from let's say Queens, for example. Co-ops in Queens typically we're seeing on my end when I'm looking at it, the price point to get into a one-bedroom co-op versus new construction condo is a little bit different, right? Yep. So we're seeing that in the market where buyers are exploring both and kind of seeing what kind of size apartment and finishes they can get for their budget.
So how is the financing different from a co-op to a condo, or versus a single family, multifamily to a condo co-op?
Yeah.
How do you guys
Great question.
Those? Yeah.
So in New York, 50% of the approval is always the buyer, 50% is the building, if it's a condo or co-op. And what I mean by that is, if you're buying a condo or co-op, we need to look at the building financials. We look at a questionnaire. We want to see owner occupancy. We want to see financials. We want to see how many of your neighbors are late on their common charges or maintenance. On a house, it's just a house. It's an appraisal only. So when I get a house, I love a house, right? So I'm not chasing that. It's less paperwork. There's less chasing someone else to get third-party documents. So for me, I love houses, but condos and co-ops, they're great investments, but the due diligence takes longer. A lot of people think, oh, hey, I'm going to buy cash, I'm going to close quicker. These attorneys still need the same due diligence.
Yeah.
It's not that much quicker at all, by any means.
Sometimes speed is not your friend.
Sometimes speed is not your friend. Exactly. And regarding interest rates vary depending on the building, believe it or not, because there's something called a warrantable building, which means it meets Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. So they back loans in the 5 boroughs for loans under $832,000. Majority of lenders sell their loans to Fannie and Freddie, so it's not on their books and they have less risk. When they're selling their loans, you'll get the lower interest rates because it meets their guidelines and they're backing it. What happens if the building doesn't meet their guidelines? It becomes non-warrantable.
Yeah.
Non-warrantable, all of a sudden, the rates are a little bit higher and banks have to start portfolio it different interest rates. And then to make it a little bit more complicated, if they're buying a house, single family, same as a condo or co-op, multifamily, once you go to a 2, 3, or 4 unit, rates are also a little bit higher. So if you think back and you remember the pandemic, unfortunately, they had all these kind of options to freeze your mortgage payments. I worked at a big bank at the time, and I'm going to say 2020, there was like 3 months that every phone call I got was, hey, my tenant's not paying me. I need to put my mortgage on hold.
Right.
And it was a real issue. So a lot of times now you'll see multifamily housing has something that we call LLPAs, loan level pricing adjustments on multifamily houses to take the risk a little bit higher rate because the default rate numbers are higher.
Now, right, so we're going to take a quick break. But before we go, I want to come back to that topic about talking about tenants and New York State.
Sounds great.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Infinity. Guaranteed Rate Infinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners, from a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
Okay, so we're back. So we were talking about tenants and New York being a tenant state. So you've been seeing more of the LPP?
LLPA. LLP is great, though. We need to get that on the blooper. Yes. That is great. Make sure you guys get the blooper LPP. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you see a lot more loan level adjusters for a couple things. So right now it's kind of confusing, but actually lower down payments, they're giving incentives to get people to buy, right? So on conforming loans, actually less money down, has positive rate adjusters where you can get a little bit lower of an interest rate on lower down payment loans, which is very unique.
Yeah.
But on the multifamily specifically, the 3 and 4 units do have higher rates than typically a single family. But we have so many different programs that we do have some partners that we work with that have no loan level adjusters. But if it's backed by Fannie and Freddie, they have loan level adjusters. Same thing as second homes. Second homes on a conforming loan have higher rates than primary homes. And same thing on investment is even higher than that as well. So occupancy is a big thing right now.
Yeah. So for investors, they have to normally put down what, 40%?
Not that bad yet, but typically we have programs with as low as 15% down, but the rates are higher. The sweet spot is typically 25% down on investment properties. But for the investors out there that are watching this, if you have 15% down, you can get an investment property. In primary properties, we have programs with as little down as 3%. So
a lot of those are going to be federally backed loans.
Yeah.
Which, as you mentioned, they have, different hurdles that you have to get through, but in a warrantable building or otherwise, it's not an issue.
It's not. And especially for houses. Houses are great with FHA backed loans. And even conventional loans, we have products with 3 and 5% down, which is incredible. So, for people that are watching, don't be afraid of the down payment. Work with great agents who can team up with mortgage people and can help you structure what you need. If you need to figure out closing costs, you need to figure out down payment, you got a team around you that can help you do that.
To that point, though, a lot of buyers that are now considering getting into the market, the first thing that they're going to hit us up about is either one or two things. It's going to be, I want to get myself a multifamily because I want to be able to live in something and be able to get some kind of cash flow, or for whatever reason, they want to bypass co-ops. Condos, let's have a quick conversation about condos because it's a unique beast, even though it does have a lot of upside. But for you on the mortgage side, is there a different type of advice that you're going to give a client who's wanting to go that route?
It's a great question. So I like to educate the customer on the pros and cons of all of it, right? And loan options, specifically loan options. And right now, I've been doing this for 22 years. This is the highest percent of buyers I've ever seen do adjustable rates in my history of lending. Wow. Typically, it's like 90% of people will go 30-year fixed and like 10 to 15% will go adjustable. Flip that around. And I'm close to about 80% of clients doing adjustables right now and 20% doing fixed.
And is it because of the volatility of the rate?
It's because rates are higher than where people think they're going.
Yeah.
So our most popular is either a 5-year or 7-year ARM, which is fixed for 5 or 7 years and payments based on a 30-year mortgage. People are going in, I would say, leaning towards that product because they feel like they're going to be able to refinance.
Yeah. And also, I think, too, the average time people hold their homes now is much shorter than our parents and grandparents, right? 30 years, they were like still in the same house. But nowadays, I get calls from people that I've bought with 2-3 years ago, and they're like, oh, I want to upgrade to a new place, or I want to sell this and buy something else. So do you think that has something to do with it as well?
I do too. I think statistics and numbers are really helpful, especially in our business, but showing how long the average person keeps a home for or the actual loan for, we can pull data like that all day long. And we kind of speak to the customers about educating them and say, hey, what do you think's best for you? And I think that each customer is a little bit different. Some people say, I only want a fixed rate, and that's great. You're never going to go wrong with a fixed rate. And other people say, hey, I can save $300 by going for an adjustable.
Yeah.
This helps me pay the extra $20,000, $30,000 for that condo I wanted. Let's do the adjustable, get me in the condo. I'll refinance later, but I'm going to save $300 a month right now.
Right.
So I think that each person's scenario is different. And I tell people all about, I see it all the time where we pre-approve a client and they're looking in Queens and they wind up in Westchester. I'm like, how'd that happen? You were only Queens. I find that a lot of times the apartment or the property dictates where people are going to go. Yeah. I see that a lot where they'll see a flashy apartment on social media and be like, I got to get that. It's a good price. Where is it?
Right.
And it can be completely out of where they're looking at. So we see that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
100%.
What are some mistakes you see buyers make early on, even before they even start?
Yeah, I think, the biggest aspect that I see on my end is one, not working with local people, right? A lot of times people go online, they find, a real estate agent that will do something for cheaper than someone else, or an online mortgage rate or something. New York's a very local market, right? There's not co-ops in Iowa or, Michigan. It's a very local market.
Right.
And I think having experience here when you work with top agents like yourself, when you put in an offer, they know you're serious. They know you have a qualified buyer. When I give a pre-approval, they know I'm going to close, right? They know, like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. If not, we know how to find him, right? Like, I can't retire. I have 3 kids, a wife, and a dog. Like, I can't go anywhere. So I still got to work.
Right.
So I think making sure that they talk to somebody who understands the market versus getting things that are online and building that relationship is important. So local people, very important. And having the conversation as a team, have the conversation, the call with the mortgage person and your real estate agent, so everyone's on the same page. A lot of times when we pre-approve somebody, a lot of times the agents don't call me, and I want them to, because when you get a pre-approval, so much stuff is not on there, right? And every pre-approval looks alike, so you can't tell the difference. If you're a listing agent and you get 3 offers and you get 3 pre-approvals and they're all the same price, all 20% down, how do you make a decision, right? It's got to be really hard for you guys.
No, it is. And we're in the age of AI and all types of crazy things. So being able to have confidence in not only the offer that you're receiving, but the backing that they're receiving is super important.
Yeah.
And in 2026, I think to everything that we've said, there's a lot of reason for optimism. Obviously, the market is a market. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. But we got to get out of here. But if there's one last thing that you want to leave buyers with, in terms of how to navigate the market or what they should be looking for, what's that one thing?
It's great. I think the one thing you should do is don't be afraid of the market. Don't put negative thoughts in your mind that you can't do this or you can't buy. It's a call. Call us. Call all 3 of us, right? Let's have a call together. Let's figure out if you can do it or not. We're free to talk to, and we're here to kind of help you. So that's my message is, you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just start and we'll lead the way.
100%. This has been another episode of Boro4Boro. Thank you to our friend Brian Scott Cohen.
Thank you.
You can find him on all socials, and we can connect you with him.
Absolutely. But thank you for joining. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode. Peace.
Hi, I'm Dylan Pachulik, CEO of XL Real Property Management, New York's most trusted name in luxury property management since 2012. We specialize in managing individual apartments, townhouses, and rental buildings held by absentee owners. We maintain our properties with the highest standards of quality and service so that owners can choose a hassle-free approach to real estate investing. Rented or owner-occupied, we handle it all. For more information, contact us at xl-rpm.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Boro4Boro. Today you will notice there's only half of us here, but we also have a very special guest. And before you ask, we are at the 2026 Inman Conference. I'm Isaiah Ajala.
I'm Scotty Cabrera.
And today we have a very special guest, Pierre Debbas of Roman Debbas.
Welcome.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So, unlike other states, getting into contract in New York is just the first hurdle. From contract to finish line is like a whole marathon filled with hurdles. And today we're going to speak to you, Pierre, just about that process and how it goes. And I guess I'll kick it off by asking, when are you supposed to engage an attorney?
So, I always say the process in New York is so much more convoluted than anywhere else in the country. Like, I don't exist in most of America, right? Like, you're acquiring residential properties. There's not many states that require a lawyer.
Sure.
Our legal system here and the nuances of New York City are so convoluted. I say get in touch with us as early in advance as possible, because it's also it's a very overwhelming process for most buyers, especially buyers, right? Like, sellers have gone through it. But I like to get engaged, not even engaged, but establish a dialogue at an early inception. Like, if your client's looking at properties, bidding on them, get us involved then, because that's the way we walk them through the process. We address their concerns. We establish a rapport, a dialogue, some level of trust, a relationship. And then we get formally engaged when there's a verbal accepted offer, right? That's when we formalize our engagement. Okay. And I always tell everybody, during your process, email me anytime. I answer questions. I spend a good chunk of my day giving away free legal advice.
Yeah.
It's a way of establishing great relationships with the brokerage community, with the clients. And, I've been doing this 20 years. It's been a proven track method for success.
You said 20 years, huh?
20 years, yeah.
Wow. Do you have a focus in
I focused at the early stage of my career, we did a ton of residential transactions in New York City. And over time, I branched out. I did a lot of commercial work.
Sure.
We have an office in the Hamptons. We're doing a lot of high-end residential transactions in the Hamptons.
Okay.
For a long period of time, we specialized in representing buyers from overseas.
Okay.
When that market was very busy, we specialized in the tax implications, the entity structures, all of the above. So now we really rounded out the firm. We're about 30 lawyers now.
Wow.
Where my personal expertise is on all the transaction elements. We represent a number of co-op and condo boards. We do commercial leasing. We represent commercial banks. We do buyers and sellers. And the one part I don't get involved in is litigation.
Okay.
We have 4 litigators in the firm. I always joke we keep them in the corner. Like they're kind of like, the litigators are a different animal than transactional lawyers. Yeah. But, internally we do everything. But myself, I think I rounded out a good transactional expertise.
Sure. Right. And so in New York City, obviously, at least 75% is co-ops.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about the complexities of a co-op and navigating that for
Yeah, the co-ops are a unique concept, right? Like there's a couple in Florida. There's not many parts of America that have co-ops.
Sure.
And if you really think about it, when people are not familiar with our market, I always explain to them, I go, imagine going to a building, you're looking at the building like you're going to invest in a corporation.
Right. You
want to make sure that investment is a wise investment by analyzing their financials, financial health, how the building's operated. And then you go to an interview with 5 strangers who interview you, and they can deem you worthy to buy in their building. Right. And if they don't think you're worthy, they just don't tell you why. Yeah. It's a very unorthodox concept, right? I'm actually surprised the system's still what it is till today. I have to imagine next 10 to 20 years, the system's revamped a bit because it leaves too much discretion in the board, subjective discretion in the board to make a determination whether they want you in their building or not. Right. So navigating this, right? Why do people buy in co-ops? Like you said, 75% of our inventory is co-ops. One, you don't have much of a choice. And 2, they trade for what? 20% less than usually real property, you'd say? Right. So that discount entices people to go through the onerous process, right? They're going to give you a body cavity search and learn everything about you, every penny that you have to your name. It really is a very intrusive process. So people have to be comfortable with that, right? A lot of people, with what I do, I represent a lot of celebrities and ultra high net worth people and famous people. Right. They want anonymity, right? Anonymity is of utmost importance. Yeah. It's very difficult for them to go to a co-op, right? Yeah. They don't even want their identity disclosed, a public record, let alone 5 people knowing every dollar that they have to their name, right? So the pitfalls really are making sure you're financially qualified to buy in the building that you're looking to buy in, right?
So how do they navigate that? If they want anonymity, because I know I've dealt with a few co-op boards, and it's just, you don't know why you've been rejected, right? And they, like you said, they want to know everything about you. They even want probably your kidneys as well, right? So how do they maintain anonymity while still going through the board process?
A lot of them can't. We had a famous actor who was buying a place in Central Park West, right? And he goes, "I need my name kept off public record. Let me buy in a trust." And we go to the board. We're like, "Listen, we want to buy in a name and trust. He'll disclose everything to you personally, but he doesn't want his name recorded online so the whole world knows where he lives." Very famous actor, right? And they're like, we don't care. We'll let him transfer the property to a trust after a year of being a shareholder in a building when we get a level of comfort and get a familiarity with him. I go, well, at that point, cat's out of the bag, right? The transfer makes no difference. Yeah. And, he had a decision to make. He had to ultimately, you want to buy in Central Park West, you don't have much of a choice, right? Most of these buildings, I always say Central Park West, Fifth Avenue, Park Avenue, they're the least flexible boards in all of New York City. So at the end of the day, he did it. But, it's a very hard balance between preserving anonymity and buying in a co-op and meeting the requirements. It's very, very difficult.
Right. So now, you've mentioned this just now, right? New York City is one of the most complex cities to buy real estate. And it all comes down really to contracts, right? If you don't want to be bitten in the back, you really want to have a nice stringent contract. Now, I don't read contracts. I'm just a real estate agent, right? I don't want to mess up my client's deal. What kind of terms do you see? What typical terms do you see mess up the deal? And how do contingencies work in the buyer's favor?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, obviously one of the most important things we have to focus on, financing. Right. Buyers come in requiring financing. For instance, during a couple of years ago, we had 3 major banks file for bankruptcy, right? First Republic being one of them. Yeah. First Republic was one of the most active high-end residential lenders in all of New York City, right? Okay. And they were rock solid. So now if you have a client who's in contract and a bank files for insolvency,
right.
you know, that loan commitment letter is worthless.
Right.
How do you scramble to protect their deposit, right? Like, that's the thing. You're putting down 10% deposits here. In the rest of the country, sometimes you start off with $1,500, right? Like, I mean, it's nothing. 10% of $5 million is a lot of money.
Right.
Right? Like, so that's where the stakes are so much higher.
Yeah.
So what we would do, like, we have to adapt to what market conditions are. So we would put a mortgage contingency and fine tune it where it would be reflected that the bank actually has to have the money to show up to the closing table. We would call it a funding contingency. And now we just added this to one of our contracts. And right now the lending environment's different, right?
Sure.
So I can live without the insolvency provisions. We're not really worried today that banks are going, you know, bankrupt, right?
Right.
So you have to adapt to what the market is giving you and what's going on in the country and the economy.
Right.
And tailor your concerns that way, right? It's not so black and white.
Right.
So, you know, negotiating that is extraordinarily important, you know, provision. Probably, in my opinion, the most important provision because of the risk associated with it, right? If you get it wrong, that 10%'s gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big price to pay.
Big price to pay. So listen, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but we're going to go for a quick break, take an ad from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
From residential and commercial closings to litigation, Boro4Boro is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at Boro4Boro.com.
And we're back. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah.
Scotty, kick us off.
Yeah. So I had a question. So I'm up Upper Manhattan, so I do a lot of townhouses as well. So multifamily townhouse buyers, what surprises come up during due diligence that buyers don't expect?
So townhouse transactions are arguably my favorite form of transactions in New York City because when you go back and look at townhouses, they were built in the late 1800s, many of these. I mean, they're beautiful, the history of them.
Absolutely.
And when you talk about 140 years, 150 years, imagine all the issues that come with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the New York City Department of Buildings has its flaws today. Imagine what it was in the early 19th century, right? So the most important thing is to go through the Department of Building records.
Right.
You want to go through certificate of occupancy. You want to make sure a lot of these buildings don't have certificate of occupancies because they predate CO laws.
Sure.
So you want to make sure that the current use lines up with the permitted use and the legal use of the property.
Right.
And especially uptown, there's a lot of, like, you know, a lot of people did renovations of properties that don't match what the CO has.
Right.
That's your biggest obstacle. So the minute we get an address for a townhouse, we go through the DOB website, check out what the CO is, check out what violations exist, check out what open permits may exist from renovations.
Right.
If the property was recently renovated, make sure that there are permits of record that were closed out so you know it was done legally.
Right.
And believe it or not, all the things I just described, there's something that goes wrong on one of those four topics in every townhouse deal I work on.
Right.
And the same with multifamily. Like you talk about Uptown. Uptown still has SRO restrictions, right? Single
I was gonna
single
just
room
ask you about
occupancy.
that.
Yeah, I mean, like in our office, we do one certificate of non-harassment application a month. That's how common it is.
Wow.
One a month, we're still doing, right?
That's
like
crazy, yeah.
SRO laws came about in the early 19th century,
Right.
where like they were really meant for like communal housing, right? Like, and the use of those properties generally isn't for SRO purposes, but you still have that restriction. So you have to go through, and then you have to go in deeds, right? Like we have deed restrictions, especially in uptown properties that once upon a time were dilapidated, and developers came in and investors came in, rehabbed them, bought them from the government for, you know, peanuts on the dollar, with the requirement to remain in occupancy, you know, for a certain period of time. So, you know, all these quirks, right? I mean, we're not even talking about landmarks, setbacks, you know, available FAR, air rights. Like there's a number of different, you know, aspects. So that it's so cool to work on them because, again, it really stems back to the point, like when you deal with a home that was 150 years old, right? And so many weird things come with that, right? But it makes it fun.
Would you, I guess, encourage someone that was looking for SRO, or would you like discourage them from going that route,
you know,
like, because of the complexities?
You know, I think you got to look at it case by case, right? Like, do they have a certificate of non-harassment in place? And you know, in a bear market, sellers have to get a certificate of non-harassment in place because no one's going to assume the risk. In a bull market, sellers like, that's on you. You figure it out. And I had clients do that years ago. They're like, well, what's the risk? I don't get it. I'm like, I can't. That's a really tough thing because you don't know when a tenant comes from the woodwork saying, hey, I was wrongfully evicted from this property.
Right.
You know, as a buyer of a property, I always say this: you inherit all the good and all the bad that come with the property. You inherit the liability from prior owners.
Yeah.
Right.
Should you not be aware of that liability in the due diligence phase or pre-closing?
Right.
So, like, you know, that's why. Like, and it's so quirky. Like, I mean, the SRO records, it's like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
You know, there's no directory of tenants.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, there's no leases.
Yeah.
You don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, so look, I think that in any investment, it's an educated decision to make
Right.
in terms of a risk reward balance.
Sure.
And I think that we help clients analyze that,
Got it.
break down the risk to the greatest amount we can ascertain that risk.
Yeah. Right.
And it's a business decision, right?
Absolutely.
Like, if you're getting a property for what you think's X amount of dollars below for what it's worth, it's likely worth that risk.
Right.
And most people end up, you know, doing quite well.
Sure.
You know, I have a horror story about that.
Really?
I sold a building to an investor. We got the letters from all the tenants in the house. After we closed, another tenant came through
Oh,
and
wow.
said, "Hey, I live there.
Yep.
Wow.
Now you've got to give me something."
Yeah.
And what do you do, right?
You're right.
You stuck.
Yeah, and he technically you're held to ransom, but now you have to like pay out.
You have to pay out.
Yeah.
And the tenant didn't have a lease, right?
No, didn't have a lease.
No lease. So how do you prove you live there?
Matter of fact, I genuinely think he was just a friend of the owner and he wanted some money, and that was
That's
a
right.
play for
It's
him.
extortion.
Right.
Basically.
that was a play for him.
Welcome to New York City.
Yeah, it's terrible. All right, so a new Fed chair has just been announced.
Yep.
Right? Chances are there's speculation that interest rates are going to drop,
Right.
or interest rates are going to change once that new Fed chair comes in. How do you protect your clients from interest rate changes? And I say that because in New York, you could be in contract for quite a while, right?
That's right.
You're talking about SROs and different things that can postpone a closing. How do you protect your clients against interest rate changes?
It's very, very difficult because it's almost an assumed element of risk for any buyer.
Right.
In very few circumstances, we were able to negotiate for a cap on interest rates. But you're talking about the reverse, right? I'm talking about rates increasing past a certain amount when the Fed was aggressively started to increase interest rates 3 years ago.
Right.
And that was rare. Most sellers are going to say, why is that? You're buying at this uncertain time in the economy.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's an element of risk you have to assume. I have nothing to do with it, which is fair, right? I understand that. So, and you bring up a great point because it's almost guaranteed in the next 6 to 18 months, we're going to see significant movement in interest rates, right?
Right. Sure.
And I do think when that happens, you're not going to be able to have protection because it's going to be so competitive to buy. I mean, like, think about it. Like, remove yourself from New York for a moment, right? In 2024 and 2023 were back-to-back lows, 30-year lows of housing transaction activity in America.
Yeah.
In 2023, we had a significant decline in transaction activity. I want to say 2022 was similar to the financial crisis in 2009 in
Right.
terms of volume of transactions that took place. To just give a point of reference how drastic the decline was. So now you have 3 years of pent-up demand.
Right.
B, you have softening of pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And C, you have rates that will come down. You're not going to see 2.6% ever again.
Right, I don't
but
think-
you're going to have affluent clients with banking relationships that are getting into the high threes.
Right.
And you're going to have average person going to a retail bank getting in the high fours, low fives,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And it's going to be chaos all over again. So not going to be protections. It's going to be too competitive
Right.
to over lawyer and over negotiate transactions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
Definitely.
I have one question for you. If you could give a buyer right now in this market any piece of advice, what would that be?
Get in the market now. Because everything I just described, we saw the second half of last year, we saw a tremendous uptick in volume.
Right.
I want to say it was the busiest since 2021, which was the
yeah?
most anomalous year in New York City history.
Yeah.
And even January, we just closed out January. January is the busiest January I saw in 20 years.
Wow. Yeah?
The busiest January. Like
This January.
This January,
Why do
new
you-
deals.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the sentiment that most people have confidence that what I'm saying is actually coming to fruition. And if you're a sophisticated buyer, you're getting in the market now because you
Okay.
know that this is the time. If you're going to wait till you have 100% certainty that what I'm saying is right,
Right.
you're going to miss the boat because
Gonna miss
everybody's
it.
going to be diving
Right.
in.
Right.
And most people look at it like it's an educated guess.
Yeah.
It's an educated guess, I think, conservatively. I'm not having a crystal ball, but I
Right.
think it's I say with certain confidence, This will happen next 6 to 18 months.
Sure.
People want to get in now before that takes place. So I would get in the market now, understanding that, you're assuming a little level of uncertainty, but if you wait any longer, it's going to be way too competitive a situation.
Nice, totally agree with that.
Yeah, man.
I guess my last question, just to wrap it up, is who is your ideal client, and what type of clients do you like work with? I'm sure you're going to say all of them, but like, who's your ideal client?
The easygoing ones. The easygoing ones.
Us too.
Non-lawyers. You're gonna laugh. I charge an increase on my fee for lawyers.
Really?
Yeah,
Lawyers are the worst clients to have.
Yeah, they're looking at
second guessing
everything.
everything you're saying.
Oh my God, they know everything. I married one too. I get it on both ends, man. No, it's funny though. Ideal clients, honestly, people who really trust our expertise.
Yeah.
We represent everybody, from $100 million transaction to $500,000 transaction, right? We do the whole gamut, and we do. I've been involved in as many deals as anybody else in New York City in the last 20 years. I think that we're very, we have a very great approach in terms of, not over lawyering, but making sure we cover all our bases, do a very incredibly thorough job, and break down our things to our clients in plain English.
Right.
So clients, most of them appreciate that. I think it's been a great, approach to take.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to, our success.
Right.
But really clients who just trust us and, follow our guidance. We're more than happy to answer questions. Obviously we go through every client's concern and question thoroughly. But, those are the clients that are the best, that really defer to our expertise.
Nice.
Wonderful, man.
I guess I have one more question. I lied. And just piggybacking off that, what's your outlook for 2026, and how could anyone reach out to you? How can they find you?
So I'm super bullish on 26, and it's funny because I've been talking about a lot of optimism, and people think, he's a real estate professional. I'm a pessimist. I'm a glass empty guy.
Sure.
So if I'm being optimistic, I think it's really legitimate, right?
You're seeing something.
I'm seeing something.
Yeah.
I really do think that this is going to be a great year. I do think that, when you look from the difference from 21 to 22 was drastic, right?
Sure.
I mean, night and day. It was disastrous in a lot of ways.
Right.
So I do think, you are turning that corner. You're going to turn it in a very sharp manner. So I would say get ready for, a very active year. And I'm optimistic. You talk about Fed chair, right? New Fed chair coming in.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk in the marketplace politically about how to bring rates down through buying of bonds, through regulating Wall Street. These things will come to fruition. And I think you have a very good runway ahead of you.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place. Our website, romerdebas.com. My email's pdebas@romerdebas.com. I'm on social media as Pierre Debbas Esquire, and I'm everywhere. I'm running around.
TikTok too, dude. No, you're like a TikTok.
I have somebody who does it for me. I don't know how to use TikTok. I'm too old for that. I
A day in the life, right? A day in the life.
Yeah. At some point, but
Good stuff.
we're all over the internet. If you just Google my name, it pops up. I do a lot of TV. I'm on network TV all the time.
Awesome.
So and then super involved in real estate community. It's a great community we got here.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you very much.
man.
Thank you for our guest.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for having
joining
me.
us. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise.
And I guess we'll see you on the next one.
That's right.
Awesome.